What's up, good people? Welcome to a very late after hours today, and after real after hours today. So Chargers lose in Arizona. They are now 3-3 on the year. I don't know where to begin. But let's talk about let's talk about how the game ended. It felt, Chargers take a lead, they get a field goal. Arizona has a chance to win the game, and they do. So how are we feeling about that last drive
I
in
mean,
general?
that there's a lot to break down about that last drive,
Yeah.
but that last drive is fueled by that absolute horseshit call on the sideline where Marvin Harrison Jr. clanks a ball and he's coming down to the ground, and they call that unnecessary roughness call on Cam Hart. It's BS. That was not a penalty. It should not have been called. It fueled the whole drive, and it flipped the game because not instead of 3rd and 10, now they've got a first down and they're playing with tempo. It just changed the whole drive.
Just completely decimated that defense towards the end, based on that penalty. This is why, again, you can't play close games against teams that you should beat, because it comes down to stupid penalties like this. You allow the referees to have an opportunity to intervene. As bad as that call was, this game should have never been this close. So, yeah, I'm upset with the calls, but I'm really more pissed off with the team and their performance tonight, because overall it was terrible and is inexcusable. And right now, I think they're in a little bit of limbo, but I'm sure we'll talk about all this as we carry on. I don't want to get too far in my bag.
Well, we got to start at some point, Craig. We're breaking down the game.
Yeah.
I mean it. Yes, I think we can all agree that wasn't a good call on Cam Hart. And yes, we're talking about a third down. Very next play, a couple missed tackles, and it's a big play from Connor, and they're already in field goal range. They ran it down the Chargers' throat late. It just, I don't feel bad. It kind of feels like they shouldn't have won this game to begin with. I mean, they got dominated up front on both ends of the football. The Cardinals' run game just ran it down the Chargers' throat, and their run defense had been pretty stellar to start the year. Defense in general had been really good. And then offensively, the Chargers' offensive line could not contain the Cardinals' defensive line, which is a really, really bad defensive line. Maybe one of the worst in the NFL, and Herbert had no time to operate. So, and then you take on some of the mistakes of the T.R. Tart fumble and the Rager fumble, and then not being able to convert on any of the times you get across the 50 and having to kick all those field goals, not scoring a single touchdown against that Arizona defense. I don't know that at all. I know a lot of people are going to point to that penalty, which sucked and was wrong, but I mean, the Chargers just did not play good today.
I mean, that changed that whole drive, but that's not why they lost. They got outplayed, out hustled, out efforted by a really, really bad football team that just wanted it more. That the Cardinals played like they had something to prove, instead of the Chargers coming out like they had something to prove, beating up on a bad football team and taking care of business and making it easy. The Cardinals came out and they controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And to me, that's the story of the game. And that's really alarming to have that group on both sides of the ball dominate the line of scrimmage the way they did. They just wanted it more. And for lack of a better word, they bullied the Chargers for 4 quarters. And that should not be happening. That Cardinals team is not very well constructed. They're not that well coached, but they played with no fear. They had no fear of the Chargers wide receivers at all. That's a group that had 11 sacks coming into the season or into the game, and they had 3 tonight. They blitzed. They won one-on-one matchups, and they tormented Herbert the whole game, and the Chargers had no answers at all.
Early on, Greg Roman showed no ability to adjust to the fact that they were just willing to play single high and, dare them to potentially pass the ball. It's like, we're not going to allow you to run. And Greg Roman fed right into it with these first and second down runs. I mean, to start the game off, everything got kicked off well enough on the offensive side of the ball. It looked like they had a little bit of tempo going. They were able to move it. But beyond that first drive, everything just went to hell, essentially. I'm trying to understand, what is it about the running game doesn't work? You can't just continue to bang your head against the wall until eventually it does, specifically when you find yourself behind. Now, granted, this was a close game. It doesn't mean you need to abandon the run. You just need to use the passing game to loosen up the defense so that you can run the ball, force them to back up into too high, give them lighter boxes to allow you to get like 3 and 4 yards. Maybe you bust one eventually, the same way you've been doing all season. But just continually running the ball downhill to no avail and putting yourself in negative down and distance when you already have an issue with your passing game is just not smart offensive coordinating. And overall, nothing about this team tonight was indicative of a Jim Harbaugh-led or coached football team. They came out completely flat on both sides of the ball. And I'm not sure I've seen a defense play this poorly or tackle this poorly in, well, a year, essentially. But I mean, to this degree, it was super embarrassing. I know Harbaugh's probably like reaming them right now, and they deserve it. But I don't understand how you get off of the bus and show up to this game and give that level of effort for 4 quarters. It was essentially consistent across the entirety of the game. And I know they were missing some guys here and there, but there's no excuse for that, man. They showed no passion, no real effort. And yeah, they allowed some of these penalties to basically sink them. But again, you can't play a close game and give the refs an opportunity to keep teams in games.
I'm not sure I totally agree that they came out flat, because the defense got a turnover on the first possession. The offense marched the ball right down the field. If not for, a fluke fumble by a defensive lineman and then another bad fumble by Rieger, who, I mean, you're throwing deep balls to a guy who hasn't been on the field all season. I mean, big time game planning questions. That whole first quarter turns out different without those 2 kind of fluky plays. So they put themselves in a position to score first and score quickly on that first possession, and feeding the ball to a guy who hasn't played all season came back to bite him in the ass.
Well, you know what? You're right. And that's me. I misspoke on that. Not necessarily speaking to them coming out flat from the onset of the game. To me, it was after the first offensive drive. So the first sets of drives, it seemed like everything went to hell in the handbasket after that. There was no playmaking whatsoever. There was no pressure on Kyler Murray, which I don't understand. And the fact that they continuously abandon rushing lanes as if they could chase down a guy who runs probably 4.2. Like, you don't have anyone on your defense, especially on your defensive line, that can contend with that. And they just weren't very disciplined. So overall, yeah, like the first couple drives, offensive and defensively, at least the first on both sides of the ball, they played well, but it seems like those were the only 2 that went, I guess, according to plan.
Yeah, that defensive line in general and not getting a pass rush on Kyler Murray has been, I mean, the pass rush has been concerning in general, but this game specifically, the entire team had 1 tackle for a loss the entire game. Like, they could not get past the line of scrimmage. They could not get deep into the Cardinals backfield. And the 1 tackle for a loss was that fake, pitch, whatever, around that Jasir Taylor was able to sniff out. Like, it was they were trying to run a trick play that didn't work, and they got a tackle for loss, but that was it. I mean, nobody was in the backfield. They got pressure. I think, Murray got hit once or twice today.
Once. He got hit once.
I mean, there is a big issue, and the edge was supposed to be carrying this defense, and Bud Dupree and Khalil Mack are not doing enough. Tuli is not doing enough. Bosa, who knows when he'll ever be healthy again. But it's just not good enough on the edge.
Yeah, the defensive line for the first time really all season got overwhelmed, and then you saw the linebackers really struggling with their angles and their tackling technique just get run over on a consistent basis. So I think the run defense got exposed to an extent tonight. Hopefully that's something they can fix. The pass rush has been a problem really all season. They're not getting home with the blitz, and they're not winning one-on-one matchups. And that's pretty concerning. But Perriman, for really the first time all year, Perriman and Henley and Colson were
all 3
not good. They were awful. No. Bad angles, bad tackling, just out of position, sticking to blockers. There was really nothing that went well at the first two levels for the defense.
Junior Colson took arguably the worst angle I've ever seen towards a guy that can probably outrun you with one shoe missing. Like, he had him dead to rights, squared him up, and then instead of basically just taking an extreme angle towards the sideline to force him back inside, he allowed him to get to the sideline as if he thought he had a chance to catch him. And again, these are just basic defensive principles. You have to understand and be self-aware. And I mean, I don't think he believes he's more of an athlete than Kyler Murray, but in that scenario, you can't make that mistake. You have to force him back inside to your help. And the one thing you prepared for all week long is the thing that you allowed to ultimately sink you at the end of a game. Like, that play cannot happen in that scenario with that player. You've gone out all week long. Who knows who they had running scout team? Probably Easton Stick or somebody like that athletic. I mean, you can't really simulate Kyler Murray's speed, but you focused all week long on not allowing that to happen. And that very thing bit you in the butt at the end of the game. Well, near the end, should I say.
Yeah. And, to be fair, they only gave up 17 points with a Herbert-led offense. You think that's enough to win you a game? Kicking 5 field goals is just not going to do it for you. And a game in which Herbert, threw for almost 350 today, no touchdowns, but it almost felt like they didn't figure out that Herbert could sling it until the very last drive. I mean, that's when he started dialing it up. They weren't running it, in the first 2 plays and making Herbert convert on a third and whatever long, but the pass game was nice. It was moving a little bit, but I mean, the game plan in general just was, it was not good. Especially that go back to the well thing with the run game all game long.
Seemed like every first down they're running the ball downhill.
Yeah.
Between the tackles, just not working, not adjusting. And the passing game, they didn't move the pocket until the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was shotgun, 7 to 10 step drop, stand in the pocket, wait for somebody to get open the whole game. There were no bootlegs. There was no like zone option or read option. No real creativity, no effort to make them guess where Herbert was going. He was extremely easy to find the whole game. It was very, very frustrating to watch. And you didn't really see they had some good short passes, some screens early in the game that worked really well, and then they completely went away from it. And it was like they were trying to push the ball down the field, and they weren't getting the ball out quickly enough. I mean, it worked to an extent because Herbert threw the ball well, but there was nothing. They didn't do enough to help Herbert make things easy on him when they needed to.
And it also doesn't help that there's no easy button receiving threat at all. Like, there's no one they can depend on as a go-to receiver. I mean, tonight, hell, it was Will freaking Disley. 8 receptions for 81 yards? This is probably, this has got to be a career day from him. And that dates all the way back to probably Pop Warner, if I had to take a guess. I don't know the last time Will Disley's caught 8 balls in anything. Probably not even in Madden. I'm sorry, man. I think we need to lay it on the table. At this point, I think it's a little irresponsible to get to this point and not. I know that they're, and we can probably talk about this at some point. We know rumors are floating around out there about people that they're potentially looking at, but you have to do something to get Herbert an offensive threat that he can rely on, specifically someone that can be effective in the red zone, because you can't keep getting the ball inside the 10-yard line or around it and just throttling down and having to come away with 3. It's nice having a great kicker, but I mean, you just had to put up all field goal scores against the Arizona Cardinals. And if it wasn't enough to beat the Cardinals, who can you beat? Who can you win with this style of offense with? It's bad enough your team typically, and I think I put this in the Discord, I'm curious to know how many drives of the Chargers this season have started inside their own 10-yard line, because it feels like every drive starts there. The fact that they're able to make it that far down the field is a miracle in itself, but you can't drive the ball, take up that amount of time, and then kick field goals and not have your defense be able to hold up. That's not a sustainable brand of football. You can't win that way.
It was kind of a cold dose of reality today, seeing the receiving core, because there just isn't. There's nothing there. I mean, Ladd McConkey looked great on that last drive, but he kind of seemed hurt for the first couple quarters at the very least. I don't know if he got a little shot in halftime, whatever, but he finally looked rejuvenated on that very last drive. But at that point, it was almost too late. And everybody else, I mean, Palmer was okay. Disley, I mean, had a crazy career day. I think he had 11 targets too today, by the way, on those 8 catches. But Palmer was okay. Fehoko made a good catch, but we haven't talked about that non-PI call. There's a lot of people who had issues with it. I hate it either way, whether he was held or not held. I don't know why on a 3rd and 3 you're going to Fehoko and going for 15 or 20 at that point. I don't like the play call at all. Especially when Disley and Ladd got you there. They drove with those two all the way down the field. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of drawing up plays for Fehoko in clutch moments. I mean, Palmer, he's come up with plays like that before. Ladd, you trust him to get open. But Fehoko is just a guy. Like, you're drawing up the biggest play of the game for a guy who, eked in as the 6th receiver on the team, 5th receiver on the team. It's the same thing as drawing up plays for Rieger early in the game. Throwing a deep ball to him, running orbit motion and having him take a jet sweep. Like, that guy can run. And we're trying to have him stretch the defense and beat the defense to the edge when they've been hammering you the whole game. Like, they don't have much to work with, but Fehoko is not the guy you want to be drawing that play up for.
And I mean, I mentioned this before. As far as the play call is concerned, I understand it to an extent of it was 3rd and short, wasn't? What was it? Was it down? This 3rd and I don't remember how many yards.
3.
Okay, so tried and true thing that happens in football. It happens all the time. As far back as I can remember, sometimes you can catch a defense flat-footed when they're attempting to send pressure on 3rd and short, and you can get a one-on-one matchup with the outside wide receiver, whether it's to the boundary or to the field. And if you feel confident in that one-on-one, then you'll take a shot thinking that either that wide receiver will win, outmuscle the guy for the ball, or maybe you get a PI call to extend the drive. The problem is it was Brendan Fehoko that did it. And I'm sorry, Semi Fehoko, getting my names mixed up. But the other issue there is it doesn't look like Fehoko understood that he was supposed to check to the go. Herbert threw a go ball. Fehoko looked like he was running a curl. So it looks like there may have been a miscommunication there. That's just what I saw with my eyes. I could be wrong, but they clearly weren't on the same page. And again, this is what we're reduced to. You're going in the clutch to Semi Fehoko, which is why they cannot sit on their hands going into the trade deadline without making some sort of move. Preferably, I would like a number 1 tight end threat that makes life a lot easier for the other wide receivers. It can open up the middle of the field a bit, but they can't get where they want to be with what they currently have, period.
Yeah, it's a pretty depleted group right now. They're not all healthy. They're struggling to get open. You have to scheme just about all of them open right now. So it's a challenge. Somehow Herbert made it work tonight to an extent. I mean, that the wide receiver group's a problem, and watching that running game tonight, having James Conner beat you to the edge consistently is not a good sign for that run defense. It seems like the Cardinals really found something that worked, and you can bet you're going to see it moving forward in future weeks. So I don't know how they're going to fix it, but they got to find a way to really protect that edge and tackle better and take better angles. That was a rough game.
Yeah, Quentin Johnston, I know, did not play today, and DJ Chark is on the way at some point. But I don't think you can wait for those two to come back and think that you've got enough to compete. And the argument could be made. We've talked about how this is going to be a 2-3 year process. Do you go chips in and get that tight end? Like we had somebody in here say, like from Show Lowman, who says Njoku for a 3rd round pick. I don't care. Is that worth it?
I think if you're trading for somebody, you're looking for somebody who you're going to have at least through next year, relatively affordably. I don't think you're looking for somebody whose contract is ending at the end of the season. Maybe you find somebody who's in the 4th year of a rookie deal who whose option was extended or something. I don't know. But look for somebody who you can have through next year who isn't terribly expensive, who you can at least try to build around. But I don't think you want to trade for somebody who's entering the last year of their deal and is gone at the end of the year. I don't think that makes a lot of sense.
I think Njoku has 1 year left on his deal after this year, if I'm not mistaken.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. In which case, I know this has been one of the names that I wanted them to take a look at bringing in. If we're talking a third, fourth round pick, and also considering comp picks to be able to fill a gap in some of the middle rounds, I wouldn't hate it. Especially if you can bring him in and maybe talk about extending him. And I mean, we're talking about a guy who's 28, 29 years old. You could still probably get a few solid years out of him and then look to potentially draft his replacement, someone who could operate within the offense alongside of him for the next 2 to 3 years and develop. But overall, man, I think what I know for certain is even with QJ coming back, a healthier lad, DJ Chark coming back, they add certain elements to your offense that you don't currently have. It's fine. I still don't think they help you a ton when it comes to red zone offense because they don't have the bigger body types. They don't have the physical style of play that will allow you to, if you have to force feed a ball into the end zone because the guys can't create separation, maybe you have a bigger body guy that can post up and make those plays. That to me is what they're lacking and what will help open the offense up. There's something else that I noticed that threw me off. And this is something I also want to go back and rewatch. It seemed like Ladd McConkey was playing in these condensed sets way too close to the offensive line, like almost next to the tackle, like as if he was an H-back in certain instances. And I know they were doing like some of those identifiers by putting him in motion to figure out whether or not the play was or the defense was aligned in man or zone. But I don't want to see Ladd McConkey aligned next to a tight end or a tackle. That's not where I want to see Ladd McConkey play. You want to get him definitely in the slot, and if you want to work him towards the outside, that's fine. But you don't want him in the trash. He can get tied up in there. He's too small. I don't understand the logic behind it.
And Njoku does have another year left. He's signed till 2025. His cap hit is $22 million next season.
Another one
So
that
big
I've
chunk.
mentioned that you can consider who's got at least another year left on his deal is Evan Ingram.
Mm-hmm.
Two guys who would completely change the way the Chargers look in the middle of the field and can make plays with the ball in their hands.
Yeah. Is this our trade target show again? Oh, we already did.
Run it
We've
back.
already made it.
Same verse, same as the first.
If you didn't watch our show on Friday, go check out the roundtable. We've got all those options and more coming. So, yeah. How are we feeling about Haskins as our as the Chargers short down back there on 3rd and 4th and short?
So that's another game plan thing that I don't get. You know, you're force feeding reps to Rieger, who hasn't played all season. Now you're giving short yardage reps to Haskins. I mean, I guess he's filling in for Gus at that point, and it's kind of a 1-for-1 trade. But man, I think I'd rather have the ball in Dobbins' hands, or even maybe sneak the ball with your 6'6", 250-pound
That's what I
quarterback.
thought they're going to do on 3rd down.
I mean, the play for me too is you get an 8-yard gain on 1st down, and then you run the ball 3 straight plays when you haven't run the ball well the whole game. Maybe run a little play action on 2nd down when they're expecting the run and throw the ball over the top. You're in the red zone. That's a point where you're probably going to get a big play because they're selling out to stop the run. So I not a fan of giving the ball to Haskins twice in that situation. Not a fan of taking the ball out of Herbert's hands when he's hot and he's leading the drive, and then you stall the drive by taking the ball out of his hands. I don't get the play calling. I don't get the game plan. They're the guys that they're scripting plays for in key situations, either early or late in the game, just don't make a lot of sense to me right now.
And Herbert did kill that 3rd down call. I'm curious what that was, that he handed the first ball off to Haskins, which I knew immediately was going to not be good. Because every time he kills, it's the worst.
The Haskins play when they lined up in offset eye last week, it worked a few times. But this week they ran like kind of this close eye formation with both side by side. It was I don't know. It was a dead giveaway. And almost anytime Haskins comes in on short yardage, he's getting the ball. So teams probably know that just from scouting. But overall, I mean, again, 6'6", 240 plus. I mean, it was a longer yard than what I thought. Initially, I thought it was a little bit closer than what where they spotted the ball. But Herbert can definitely get that, man. Just allow him to get low and burrow and get that first down.
Yeah, I didn't know why they didn't do it on third down and then why they didn't do it on fourth down. Out of all guys to be handing that ball off to, Haskins is not even close to on my list.
He's not the one.
No, he isn't. How did you? We kind of mentioned Cam Hart today. So a lot of rookies starting again today. Saw a lot of Tarheeb Still. Saw a lot of Jasir Taylor. Saw a lot of Cam Hart. How did you feel like the corners did today? Outside of, we kind of talked about how Hart maybe, was on the bad end of, two bad calls. Outside of those, how did you feel that the rookies played today? Still and Hart.
I thought Still and Hart played well. Still had a huge pass breakup in the fourth quarter, played it perfectly, didn't try to play through the man or try to gain any extra leverage with that offhand, went for the ball at the highest point, made a nice play. Hart was all over the field. I mean, they held MJH to what? MHJ, sorry, to what? Like 3 catches for 20 yards or something like that.
3 for 21, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, Hart's been great the last 2 weeks, still played really well. I don't really need to see Taylor on the field.
Yeah. There was, outside, he got smoked by Dortch, but he did have a really nice pass breakup against Marvin Harrison Jr. And then he was the one who had the one tackle for a loss when he sniffed out that fake reverse to James Conner. But outside of that, I think his job is done here. They found their man in Tarheeb Still, who did pretty good today. But I thought Hart, was nice today. I don't believe either of those penalties were actually penalties. He did force a fumble on Trey McBride that they ended up recovering. A really good coverage on the sideline against Marvin Harrison Jr. as well for an incompletion. And then, that whole what was it? Illegal contact late? Is that what that was? That last penalty?
No, it was unnecessary roughness.
Unnecessary roughness.
Yeah, that penalty. I mean, coming back to the ball and making that hit on MGH really helped, spring that ball loose too. And so I don't know about that call, but I thought a pretty heady play to come back and kind of falling into his zone and then coming back to the ball and knocking that thing loose was pretty nice.
Actually, he didn't knock it loose. Harrison Jr. just flat out dropped it. It was through his hands and through his legs into the ground, and he was on his way down when Hart hit him. Like he was.
You don't think Hart had anything to do with that?
The contact didn't come until after he dropped it.
It was after the
ball
drop.
Was already on the ground.
Yeah, I thought Harrison felt it coming.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe, but the contact was after the ball hit the ground.
It sucks that in a game based on physicality, you seem to be like penalized for it at this point. As a DB, your job in that scenario is to ensure that the receiver does not come down with that ball. So he did his best to dislodge it. Now, HJ dropped it, but it almost feels like he was supposed to be able to control himself midair and stop himself from creating the contact once it was established that Harrison dropped the ball. He had no way of knowing that. And overall, I like what Cam Hart did in this game. Early on in the first quarter, I think he allowed like a third down conversion to Harrison. He whiffed on an open field tackle. And then after that, he was pretty much nails. And Tarheeb Still is just doing the same thing he's been doing since he stepped on the field in place of Jasir Taylor while he was out those few weeks. A couple nice timely PBUs. You guys spoke to that. And he feels like a defensive mainstay, as he should be. So the Chargers have drafted well, 2 young corners who they have on cost control contracts moving forward. And that's something, again, to be very happy about. So the team is drafting well and they're developing players well. Now, Cam Hart just kind of caught a raw deal on a play that ultimately may have decided the game at the very end. You get in a scenario there where it's 3rd and long. And who knows what they decide to do, on 3rd down there, if they get enough yardage to where they feel like they're in 4-down territory, who knows what happens after that point. But overall, I'm really happy with the rookies, specifically those 2.
So now that we're talking about Marvin Harrison Jr., you guys concerned at all about him? because he did not look very good today.
He looked like a guy who was disinterested when he didn't get the ball early in the game.
Mhm.
Kind of checked out. Little bit of a diva action going on there.
I don't know, man. He didn't seem to be really breaking on any balls. I mean, he let Henley come in on him and break up a pass, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, just very disengaged. And here, it's not a given that you're going to get passes as a wide receiver. I mean, ultimately, I know that's what you're out there for, but you got to go out there and earn those targets. And I mean, if you're open and Kyler's just missing him, because there was one play where he was wide open that would have been an easy 6 and Kyler just didn't see him. So there's probably some frustration and them working on their chemistry there, but you can't put that on tape. It's a bad look overall. And if the coaches care anything about him, they'll try to coach him out of it. But again, like, we don't know this kid personally. So, I mean, he could very well be a diva, but he was definitely demonstrating like diva type tendencies tonight. So, I mean, fantastic player in college. I don't think he suddenly got to the NFL and he's trash. I just don't think that he's someone that functions well if he's not the center of attention on an offense, which is no bueno.
It's also a different level of competition, and he's seeing the opposing team's best corner every week. So it's an adjustment period.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of people in the chat talking about Brendan Rice not being able to crack this wide receiver group, even with all the injuries happening. You thought this was going to be the game. We'd see Rice. We did not. We saw a lot of Rager. What now? What do they do with Brendan Rice?
Well, we saw him. I saw him for one play, and the problem was he was misaligned, and I think he might have been the reason why the Chargers had to burn a timeout. Herbert was telling him before the play, hey, switch sides, you're on the wrong side. Then he got to the side, had to go in motion. By the time that happened, there was like 2 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah.
They had to burn a timeout. So,
in the red zone.
Yeah. So if you're a guy who's been like pining away, waiting for your opportunity, like I've seen these tweets on Twitter that he's put out, like it's God's perfect timing. Great. God put you in the game. He got you in position to make a play or get out there and get some run. You have to know the basics. And then after that play, I'm not sure if they put him in again. I mean, I'm not surprised. You've been waiting around for this opportunity. You know, you've got the name recognition. Some of that, I think, brings a little bit of cachet, which is why I think a lot of people were very high on him. I still like Brendan Rice as a prospect. I made no bones about that. But you can't expect to have, you know, any real opportunity if you can't get in the game and align properly. That's the basics. First things first, before you can have an opportunity to be a playmaker or show like, you know, you're worth the last name as far as, you know, the play on the field is concerned. So you still got some growing to do.
Yeah, I think with Rice, you're probably looking at him being the first one cut when Chark comes back. That's my guess. I think at this point you have no issues.
Or Rager?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I mean, Rager was on the field before him today.
That's true.
So
and he offers special teams. Yeah, as far as a returner. Yeah, technically, yes. It's not great, but he can do it. You can throw him out there. I wouldn't advise it.
Yeah, I think at this point, you know, you can get him on the practice squad. There's no reason to keep him around. When Chark is ready, send him down and be done.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Just feels like he doesn't have it right now. And they got better options, apparently. Well, according to the organization.
And that is not a ringing endorsement.
No. Have we talked about Dicker yet?
Nope.
It's the only bright spot.
I know, man. 5 for 5, a 59-yarder. I didn't think they were going to kick that field goal. Did you guys think they were going to line up for a field goal there when they didn't get it?
I was completely shocked.
I didn't think they were going to kick it, and he could have kicked that from 70.
That was good from They had at least another solid 8 to 10 on it.
Crazy.
He is automatic. He has been amazing, man.
And his leg has gotten so much stronger because he did not have that leg when they first signed him.
Didn't feel like it. No.
Different kid.
Yeah.
Still perfect from everything, 50 and under over the course of the first 2 years. That's tremendous, man. And if he's got that kind of distance, I mean, you have a special teams weapon. He can officially be labeled a weapon, not to the tune of having to score like 15 plus points a game. I wouldn't think that was what you wanted to lean on him for, but coming up key clutch kicks, yeah, you want to be able to have that, on your special teams.
Yeah. Also hit a 50-yarder, but 59, man, I didn't think they were going to kick it. They lined up and I was like, what? Anyway, that was
also
great.
Showed a little bit of desperation.
Yeah, but he was one of the lone bright spots today. I know we talked about Will Dissly a little bit already, and getting 11 targets. But what about this tight end group in general, getting 14 targets today? I mean, that just feels like mismanagement.
I mean, it's got to go somewhere. And they were getting open, I guess. I mean,
I guess.
I mean, sometimes it looked like the defense just forgot Dissly was on the field. Maybe they didn't see him as a viable receiving target. I mean, to the tune of 11 targets, I would think you would have figured that out at some point. But I guess I made this joke in the Discord. It's almost like he catches the ball and he seems to be like slow motion glitching in real time, and people don't know what to do about it. They just stand around and just watch him go. It's the strangest thing. But I mean, give him props for stepping up to the plate. I mean, he had a couple drops because he's not a natural receiver. But again, this is what we've been reduced to. You have less than 100% Lab McConkey out there. You got Jalen Reagor, who you decided to make a focal point of the offense early on, which, I mean, Jamie already mentioned this, makes absolutely no sense to me just because of his background. Let alone the fact that you were – no, go ahead.
What am I missing? Reagor had the one deep ball, and then they had that jet sweep. Was there something else? I don't remember.
I feel like there was I feel like there was at least a third target to him.
Okay.
But I mean, he was also in as a punt returner initially. Then they took him out and put Ladd in, which I don't know whether I don't know what he did to be removed as a returner. I mean, he didn't fail there, but I guess maybe after the fumble, they were just kind of like, fumble. That was it. Yeah, that was just like,
you got your shot, kid. Go sit down.
Yeah.
Yep. And I mean, he's an athletic guy. It's just that he's not been able to produce really consistently anywhere he's been. So to me, I feel like they wanted to utilize that athleticism early on deep, because right now, I mean, especially without Darius Davis, he's kind of sort of your only real legitimate deep threat. I mean, he is a fast, explosive player. He's just not very good.
Yeah, you both said feature Jalen Reagor, and I swear he only got that one pass.
I mean, like early.
I mean,
they felt like they featured him early.
Is he shouldn't have been on the field at all. Well, and there were too many snaps for him.
I think he had more than one target.
Oh, okay. All right. Maybe you guys are right. But
I feel like there was a deep pass, the jet sweep. Then I want to say there was at least one more target.
He had one target.
Yeah. See?
It feels like he was so much.
They draw deep play for him early in the game, and they have him running jet sweeps. I don't know. I
just felt like I saw a ton more of him than I expected to.
I think it was just shocking seeing him on the field as much as he was.
Yes, that's got to be what it is. And I mean, if this is where we are, then yeah, boys, lock in, because
and girls.
Yes, folks, everyone.
Oh, here we go. Sam G cracked it. That's right. He had the screen, but there was a penalty on it. There was another one.
Okay.
All right.
Too many. Too many.
Yeah.
The first play was enough. If he had scored or been able to hold on to the ball, then if you want to keep him involved there, I get it. But after the first one, it should have pretty much been it for him.
Yeah.
But look, I'm going to the Saints game this weekend, and if this is what I have to look forward to, I'm concerned.
Yeah. So we gotta come up with some kind. Well, Jamie, we were talking about tight ends, and before we got on, it feels like we saw 2 targets to Stone Smart, 2, right? 2 targets to Stone Smart.
Yeah,
he had that 31-yard gainer. The second one on a diving play that he almost had, just overthrew him a little bit, but a guy that should be getting some more run as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to me that they're drawing up screens for Dissly when Smart runs so much better than he does.
Yeah.
But you would think there'd be some opportunities for Smart to run some seam routes, to run some zone beaters, and get him the ball, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a game up the seam and see what he can do with the ball in his hands. I mean, he's so much more athletic than Dissly. He made that great 31-yard catch. I thought he should have caught the other one. I think if you go back, I don't think Herbert overthrew him. It hit him right in the hands, and he just dropped. It was a tough catch, but he should have caught it.
It was beautiful ball placement both times.
Yep. But I mean, that's your athlete at tight end. And this Greg Roman offense has always been known for those deep overs with the tight ends out of play action, and we haven't seen any of that this year. It's something you've got to. I would have expected them to come out of the bye week with that, because it's something they've always done well with Herbert calling, or with Roman calling plays. It just seems like an easy pitch and catch, and for whatever reason, they're just not doing it with any of the tight ends. But they've got to find a way to make more explosive plays, and Smart seems like an option to do that.
I mean, with Hurst out, I just assumed Smart would have been a bigger part of the offense because, I mean, technically, well, I guess if you want to count Will Dissly now, all-world Will, I just assumed that he was going to be your wide receiving threat because currently you don't have one that you can count on to be out there to be more athletic route runner, like Jamie mentioned, like, split the seams, do a little bit of that work to open the offense up. It just seems like he's getting spot duty right now, and I can't quite understand why.
This is a question that I find curious as well from Stephen P. With how long Bosa's been inactive, why didn't they just place him on IR? Did they really think because he got hurt in week 3?
Two.
It was the Pittsburgh game.
No, he got hurt the first time after a sack of Bryce Young in the Carolina game. Came off the field, went back, and I think he came off the field for good in that game. And then he came back in Pittsburgh and got hurt again.
Yeah, like almost immediately, right?
Yeah.
Was it like one of the first few plays of the game?
Yeah.
But was game 3?
No, it was game 2. He first got hurt. He hurt his hip on either a run stop or a sack of Bryce Young in Carolina.
But what I'm saying is he played
in game 3
for like a play, and then he came
right.
out.
So what I'm saying is since he's been hurt, we're at week 7 now.
Mm-hmm.
Why not just put him on IR?
Yeah, they must have thought he'd be back sooner, or maybe they want opposing offenses to game plan for him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't know. Somebody brought up a point that I was going to... Oh, here we go. From Rome to 515. Side note, Joshua Palmer hasn't gotten any better. He's the same guy he was when he was a rookie. We've been waiting for that Joshua Palmer jump. He was supposed to be wide receiver 1 here. And has he gotten better?
I mean, you're talking about a guy who I think had 70 catches last year. I think he had 60 plus catches the last 2 years. So it's not like he hasn't been productive.
I think they're confusing production with availability. When he's on the field and he's been on the field consistently, he's been productive. The issue has just been him being on the field.
Yeah. And that was 2 years ago, Jamie. That was 2020.
He was dealing with injuries last year also. Like what the 70 catch season was the year he was essentially like forced into the number 1 wide receiver role, right? Because both Keenan and Mike Will were out for a significant period of time, or they were kind of taking turns being out.
Yeah,
but I think he dealt with a rash of injuries. I mean, it's been this way for the entirety of his career. It's just, I mean, even tonight you saw him with the huge arm brace on, and he went out a couple times after a couple of big plays. Like he flashes here and there. It's just that he's never going to be a true number 1 wide receiver. I think we thought that he would get more targets in this offense just due to the way that they would have to spread the ball around and his play style. It would kind of make him the number 1 with regard to maybe not targets, but maybe yardage and touchdowns. I think I had him doubling up his touchdown total this year. Problem's just been injuries. And when he's on the field, I don't know, that rapport with Herbert, it seems like Herbert's kind of weaning himself off of him and more so onto Ladd. So I don't know. It's weird.
Do you guys think it's fair to say, from Lou Espo, say now that it was a mistake asking Keenan to take a pay cut? Do you feel like that was still the wrong move? They should have kept him?
No.
They asked other players to take pay cuts. Like Khalil Mack came off of a career year and
Bosa
he took a pay cut.
Bosa took a pay cut.
I mean, it's not like they singled him out.
Yeah.
I mean, Khalil Mack didn't feel disrespected, and he literally had the best season of his career.
Yeah.
And is Keenan even producing in Chicago right now?
He had, I think, a 2-touchdown game.
Last week he had a
in
pretty good
London.
game, but yeah, he's still dealing with like the heel injury, so it's not the Keenan that we know and love. It looks like he's still fighting back from injury, but again, availability.
Yeah. All right. So, okay, if you guys got questions, send them in. And just speaking of wide receivers, Chargers have checked in on a few wide receivers as soon as this week. Some big names too. So they might be having help coming. Let's at least hope that's the case, because
I gotta believe they'll make some kind of a move. They've got to add either a pass catching tight end who can actually run, or a wide receiver who can stretch the field a little bit. They've got to do something. They've got to get Herbert some help. This offense is not sustainable right now with this personnel grouping.
Him throwing for 350 yards tonight is ridiculous to me. I mean, the fact that he was able to pull that off, I still don't understand it. It's not computing. Like, I see the stats and I'm thinking back through the game. It doesn't feel like it was that much yardage passing, but I mean, it's undeniable. It's there, but you have to be able to pay this off. You can't put up this type of production and get aside from field goals, you have to get the ball into the end zone. Like, it feels like now, it's just in a different way. Before, we were asking for Herbert to get help from a defense and a running game. And now you have a team that's focusing on defense and a running game, and he still needs help.
All right, let's go to some of these questions. Sam G, if they acquire a new, interesting way of spelling acquire, if they acquire a new pass catcher, how long until they are acclimated to the offense? How soon do you think they can get going and clicking? The good thing is it's still early.
I mean, the wide receivers only run like 4 or 5 routes between them. So
yeah,
it's not that
complicated. I was going to say it's not that complicated of an offense.
Yeah, they got Rager in no time. An actual NFL wide receiver shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, competent one.
Yeah. Another question about Rice. Do you feel like this is from James Hunter. Do you believe that it's just that he's that raw and underdeveloped? They don't trust him being out there? Feels that way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else the explanation could be, considering the shape the wide receiver room's in. They clearly don't trust him. And he showed when he did get on the field that he didn't know where he was supposed to be. So I would say that lack of trust is deserved.
Yeah.
Seems warranted.
Maybe warranted,
I mean,
yeah.
Again, Jalen Reagor's been around for 3 weeks, and he got on the field and was essentially early on targeted, or at least he was part of the game plan, clearly. And Brendan's been around for the entire offseason since draft, and he's still barely sniffing the field. So, I mean, I saw the one snap today. I don't know if he got on the field after that. Probably not. I wouldn't be surprised. But again, man, you got to show up.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but Rager was signed off the street, right? He wasn't with a team.
I think he might have been signed off of somebody's practice squad.
Practice squad? Was it the Patriots?
It might have been.
He may have been released from I think the Patriots were the last team he was on. It might have been the Vikings, then the Pats. I'm not sure if he was a free agent or if they signed him off the practice squad, but I think the Patriots were the last team he was with.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyway. Okay. Who had a worse game from Stephen P? I love this game. The defensive line or the linebackers?
I would have to say the defensive line, because I think the defensive line struggling had a lot to do with the linebacker struggling.
Mm-hmm. The D line got ran over. There were a lot of missed tackles by the linebackers, but the D line, for the first time it felt like all season, just got their ass handed to them today.
Yeah.
To an offensive line that's not good, by the way. This team isn't good. The Cardinals are a bad football team. So,
D-line. Mainly because there was next to no surge at all from the interior defensive line, which is not something we've seen to this point at all through the entirety of the season. So really discouraging. Linebackers did not hold up well either, but they were getting thumped all game long, and James Conner was looking like prime Marshawn Lynch. Just overall bad performance at the first and second level, but defensive line has to do something to slow the running back down in order for the second level guys to consistently get in there and make plays, but it was bad all around.
Yeah, I was not expecting the Cardinals to run the ball like that. that was the most surprising thing. That and the pass rush, the opposing pass rush, surprised the hell out of me.
It was role reversal. I thought the Chargers were going to cram the ball down the Cardinals' throat tonight, and couldn't have been any more wrong.
Yep. All right. How about Gabe Davis? Says TH.
From the Jaguars? Is that where he is?
Yeah, I think so.
Didn't he sign a massive contract? I feel like that's a contract you probably don't want to.
He is with the Jags. Hold on. Let me look at his contract. If it was affordable, would you guys be with it?
Possibly.
A 3-year, $39 million deal. I bet
most of it is stacked in next year's cap too. Let's see.
Oh God. Well, there's an out in 2026, but next year it's 6.7, and then the following it's 17.2. So it's backloaded.
When did he sign that deal?
This offseason.
This offseason.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he'd be a huge upgrade in terms of a downfield wide receiver, but then who wouldn't?
The bar is super low.
Knowing from James Heritage, knowing that the offensive line is a top priority for Harbaugh and Ortiz, how high will we take an interior offensive line or sign in free agency?
Was that what we are already?
We're already talking about it.
I think you'll probably see either a guard or center in the draft in the first 3 rounds and one in free agency.
Divide and conquer. Yeah, I would agree. That would be the way that I would want to go about it, just to kind of, I guess, free up some of that draft capital and maneuver in some other places, maybe build some depth. But yeah.
So you think they're taking 2 interior offensive linemen with 2 of their first 3 picks?
No.
I
was saying either a guard or a guard or a center in the first 3 rounds, and then sign one in free agency, whichever one you don't draft.
All right, let's get some more here.
By the way,
yeah,
how bad must Hymas and McFadden be at this point if they can't get on the field with these bums playing ahead of them?
They were inactives today. Were they injured or just healthy scratches?
I mean, they haven't played, so I can't imagine they're hurt.
Yeah, I think it's a healthy scratch, man. And it's really strange considering all of the shine that they gave McFadden this offseason. It felt like he was a huge part of their plans, and he's just gone off into the ether at this point. So I'm assuming it's performance, but I haven't seen anything with regard to injury for either of those 2.
Yeah, Jordan McFadden's flashed so much, I just can't believe. And they talked him up so much. I just don't know where he's gone. Eric Voles, can this team ever be a legit title contender with Greg Roman at offensive coordinator? Did it with the Ravens.
I mean, he's had a lot of success. He did it with the 49ers too. So I think it can be done. I don't think they have their personnel.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Right now.
Roster construction. You can't consistently expect to be a very good downhill running team when your interior offensive line is this cheeks. So yeah, they absolutely need the guys. They don't have the horses yet. And he's proven in the past that he can. I mean, again, everything has to be, I'm not going to say ideal, but you have to at least have some of what you need in order to make it work. And right now, guard to guard, I mean, Zion played a good game last week, but I'm assuming tonight was bad. I didn't key in on him specifically, but I do know there's an absolute issue at center, and they need to do something about that now.
Yep. Papa Starch, better question. Are we concerned about Tuli in the pass rush? I am.
Yeah.
For weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this on Friday, right? It's was it Friday or was it on? Yeah, it was Friday.
It was Friday, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's not really capable of winning consistent one-on-one matchups right now. He's a guy who has to rely on stunts and twists and effort to get home, and it's just not happening. So he has a long ways to go right now.
You know what I think is a problem? I may have mentioned this Friday. I'm not sure. It's escaping me right now. But I think there's a lack of overall athleticism on the edge. Like Khalil Mack is a power rusher, still got huge motor, great technique. Bud Dupree is aging. He doesn't have the same burst that he used to, and he's never been the most agile dude. He's always been super stiff, and Tuli is not what you would consider a top-tier athlete. Definitely wins with effort, and like Jamie mentioned, the way that they were freeing him up more often than not were with twists and stunts. Like very solid at setting the edge against the run, but he's not going to be a guy that consistently wins on the outside on his own, beating guys with athleticism, and right now not even technique. So I think they really need a splash of athleticism, like a pure freakish athlete on the edge to help create pressure, or at least someone who can give chase to a quarterback and make them feel like they're in danger of actually being caught.
All right. Last one here from Jed Jacobson. How about Deontay Johnson, guys?
Isn't he a guy who's having all kinds of attitude issues in Carolina, like pouting and getting into arguments with coaches and Bryce Young? I don't know if that's the answer.
And he also has had a case of the dropsies. I don't know if he's gotten over it recently, but I do know that in Pittsburgh it was a problem last year, and I think I saw some of that early with the Panthers this season. So, I mean, again, I guess the question is like, are we just looking for someone who can contribute? I mean, he would easily be a number one in this offense, but is he really a number one receiver is the question I guess I would pose. Or do you need one? Do you care?
How would you feel if I told you that they have checked in on Deontay Johnson? Does that change your opinion at all?
I mean, it's better than what we have, but I mean, I've not been a huge Deontay Johnson fan.
I guess he'd be an upgrade. I would just be concerned about the locker room portion of it based on some of the things I saw and heard in Carolina. But at this point, you're at a point where you kind of have to check in on everybody.
Uh-huh. Yep. Okay. All right, guys. Well, that'll do it for us. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on After Hours. Chargers 3-3. It's not over, but it was not fun watching this game and doing this late. So appreciate you guys watching, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Salute.